Good evening, everyone, and welcome to College Football Wraparound. We haven't done College Football Wraparound in about 10 days, so, of course, it is fun to be back for College Football Wraparound. Of course, as you know, we did our show not this past Sunday, but the previous Sunday, which was the 14th, which led into Republican National Convention that took up the rest of the week. So that was our busiest stretch of days that we've had here on the channel, I believe, ever, with 5 straight days of being live. So, I was pleased with the performance we had. Did really good. So, I want to thank y'all, the viewers, for showing up. We gained a couple subscribers too, so that is big for our channel. So, of course, back here tonight on our Wednesday night, which is going to be our midweek staple. So, starting now, a midweek Wednesday nights is going to be our midweek time for you to watch 7:30. And the reason why I'm doing that is because that will give us time, like whatever, say when it's time to talk about the college football playoff rankings, then it'd be the day after, and we can kind of give some assessment on how that's going, and then kind of break down what we thought of the game, the games that happened Saturday. So that's what's happening starting here today, July 24th. So very excited to do Wednesday nights once again this college football season. And then our weekend show will be starting back up soon. So be on the lookout for that. I'm not sure if it's going to be Saturday or Sunday. Haven't set that straight yet, whether for this weekend, but we'll get that all ironed out for you. So, of course, tonight, as you saw in the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about EA Sports College Football 25. It has released, and I got to tell you, I got a lot to tell you about it because I think it's going to be a fun game to play if you're someone who loves playing college football video games. I think it's fun, but I'll get into that here in a little bit. We're also going to be talking about the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl is making another push to not be in the semifinal rotation because of its historic New Year's Day date. So that's coming up. And then, of course, we will get into the final time we'll be talking about my preseason rankings for this preseason, which is rankings 21 through 25 for me. So very exciting to get to share that with you. So, of course, after that, we'll take questions as well. So don't worry, we'll answer your questions as it comes. So let's go ahead and begin with we're going to start tonight by talking about the Rose Bowl game. And so an article right here from CBS Sports will give us a little bit more context. So it's saying the Rose Bowl is seeking to get out of the college football playoff semifinal rotation starting in 2026. Sources confirmed to CBS Sports' Dennis Dodd. If bowl officials are successful, the granddaddy of them all will permanently move to its traditional January 1st date. Excuse me. So, first of all, before I move on, this is significant because the semifinal game is always one of the three best games of the season most of the time. I mean, for instance, you got a overtime classic this past year between Alabama and Michigan. So it's going to be big if you lose having that either 1 versus 4 or 2 versus 3, in my opinion. I think it's a big loss if you're the Rose Bowl. But then again, the viewers also show up because it's New Year's Day, and it's kind of been a tradition that football fans, that they wake up on that New Year's Day late because they stay up past midnight and well into the early portion of the beginning of the year. And so they will enjoy football after they wake up. So I think that this is a smart move through the Rose Bowl from a standpoint of looking at the viewership. Because let's be honest, the schedule right now for the way they got the playoff, I just don't feel like there's a way you can really do where it makes any sense with the 12-team playoff model because of the way it's just all stretched out. I think it looks stupid, to be honest. But that's another conversation for another day. But moving on in this article, continues, because we're the only bowl that has the date as part of our brand in the New Year's Six bowls, it's really imperative for us and important for us, the Rose Bowl Management Committee Chair Laura Farber told ESPN. We don't know when there will be a long-form agreement. We're hopeful it will be sooner than later, but that depends on when the CFP has everything ready to go. So this is not the Rose Bowl's first attempt to keep its traditional spot. According to Dodd, during development of the 12-team field format, the Rose Bowl let it be known if it wanted to retain the January 1st date at 5 p.m. Eastern Time if possible. And then going on, this is not new news. One college football playoff bowl official were familiar with the talks told Dodd. And then also goes on, sources tell Dodd the Rose Bowl's intent is to preserve the relevancy of the Tournament of Roses parade on January 1st. The parade has long been considered more important to some of those bowl officials than the game itself. So, of course, like I was saying, it goes on, becoming a permanent quarterfinal possibly impacts the quality of the matchup, but that's less of an issue than the permanency of the date, time, and parade. So, really, there's a lot more that goes on with it, but here's my opinion. First of all, I think if you're the Rose Bowl, like they said, they've been known New Year's Day, you watch the Rose Bowl. Now, all the other college football bowl games pretty much get thrown out. And so it is kind of like their staple, like, hey, January 1st, you got to watch the Rose Bowl, like a lot of people do. So I think that this is a good move on the Rose Bowl's part for trying to keep it some tradition. And even in a world of college football where, let's be honest, tradition's kind of been thrown out the window, I do like this idea of throwing it out. Now, from a quality of matchup standpoint, there's two things we can argue here, okay? First thing we can argue is that, okay, the matchup's not going to be as good. But then again, in my opinion, you're also got to look at it this way too, because these quarterfinal matchups could actually be really good. We don't know yet. That's the thing, is we have not seen the 12-team model play out yet. So until we see it, we don't know what these matchups would actually be like if played. So, for instance, you could get in a 1-8 matchup, possibly like you think about it, you get USC and Penn State. That's just, even though they're in the same conference, but with a 12-team model, you could actually get that result. The reason why I throw them two out there is that could potentially be a matchup that gets put in there. Because that was an old, that would have been a Pac-12 versus Big Ten matchup. But, of course, with USC moving to the Pac-12, it does change things a bit. So, here's the big thing. Quality of matchup, it's going to depend on every year to year. Here's my question. How do you go about rotating 5 bowl games into the semifinals like that? How do you do that? Would there have to... that's the good question I have. Is because that would mean that, for instance, this year's going to be Orange Bowl and Cotton Bowl. Then the next year it would be the Peach Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. Then it would be just the Sugar Bowl. So you would have to choose Orange Bowl or Cotton Bowl to go into that spot. And then it just makes it so difficult trying to figure out where to lay these bowl games after 2 years. So here's my question. Would it become one of those things where potentially you see a world where the Sugar Bowl may step back and be like, hey, most of the time we play on the same day as the Rose Bowl. we're going to step back and do just January 1st. I don't know if that's even a possibility at this point because I think the Rose Bowl is the only one that wants this. Because like they said, they're like the only one that's actually tied to tradition. So, I mean, I think this is a big point within college athletics. How do we work with this? I think is a good question that I think a lot of people are going to have. So, semifinals, and of course this is going to be the way I would do it. Say if I were commissioner of college football, okay? Let me go there for a minute. I would have Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl be January 1st, or of course, if it falls on a Sunday, you move to January 2nd. You leave those, like I said, you leave those two at the beginning of the year. Then the only 4 bowl games that would be moved around between quarterfinal and semifinal would be Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Peach Bowl. I think that's the way you got to do it. I think that's the way that makes the most sense here, because, like I said, it just gets too difficult trying to figure out how to schedule that if you have 5 bowl games and 6 slots and you're trying to rotate it each and every year. I mean, it makes it too difficult to continue rotating that all. So that's the way I see it. Now, here's another question about the timing and how they would do this, okay? Would there be a world where they reduce some of that layover time? So, like, okay, but the next game after January 1st within the college football playoff of schedule would be January 9th. And the championship's on January 20th. Why is a playoff like this going from December 20th to January 20th? Like, why are we having a month to play all this? I mean, I understand with the way college, like, with midterms and, the end of the fall semester going into the spring semester. But still, the 12-team playoff has made this a little bit murky, if we're all going to be honest. So we'll just have to see how everything plays itself out. But personally, I do think that this has made it very murky with the way that the playoff has scheduled this all. And so we'll have to just wait and see where things lead to. All right, moving on now. Now let's talk about EA Sports College Football 25, which released, I believe, on Friday. And so, I've got to play a little bit of it. And I will say this. If you are playing on varsity mode, it is one thing. It does depend on who you're playing as. If you just start playing, until you get super comfortable with the game, it does depend on who you play as in varsity mode. For instance, I believe I played as Alabama. I will say this. Alabama is a tough team to play as in the game. Another team I played as is Oregon State. That's even harder. And then the other team I played as was Ohio State. I will say this, is that if you are a person who loves to run the ball, I think you will have more success running the football in this video game than you do throwing. I believe with Will Howard yesterday when I was playing, I threw a ton of interceptions. I still won because I was playing against my brother and he decided to play as Colorado State. And I still smoked him, throwing like 8 interceptions. So if he's watching, of course, he can comment and let me, kind of let y'all know that, yeah, I did destroy him in the game. So, but getting past, kind of bragging and all that, I will say it's a good game. They've done a good job. The one thing I would say that there's 2 things. First of all, they really did make kicking a whole lot harder. If you're kicking a field goal past 25 yards, yeah, good luck trying to make that. And then secondly, if you're playing like a dynasty or road to glory or whatever it may be, you can only play as your team. You can't play any other games, which I personally I liked playing it with the other games as well, just to, just play around, see what it'd be like. You can't even, for instance, you can't even watch, like if your team's not in the national championship in this game or in the playoff, you can't even watch these games. You just have to sim the games and see who wins. That's a part I really hate because I would love to sit there and actually watch and see how this goes. But of course, that's not an available option. So I think if I'm giving the game a grade, I would say B plus maybe. I think that's generous. I ain't saying it's a good game, but there's still some flaws that I want to see fixed. And I think that with the whole thing where you can't play as other teams, I think that goes into the whole idea of it being, I mean, it's not Madden. But as far as the whole thing about you can only play as your team, I think that's a Madden feature they put in this game, which I do not like. Which I think we need to get rid of that and allow you to play as whoever you want to play as. So that is my honest review. Of course, comment below if you have the game. Let me know what you think about the game because I would really like to get your feedback. All right, folks. Now, we are going to move into our portion of the show where we are going to talk about my rankings 21 through 25. So here you have it. So at 21, you got Utah. 22, you got Kansas State. 23 is Miami. 24, Arizona. 25, Louisville. So first of all, when we look at Utah, folks, also, before I get into this, if you're someone who loves college football, and I know I've mentioned this, I believe, the previous couple of preseasons, but the Phil Steele magazine right here, Phil Steele's College Football Preview 24, is a great pickup for a diehard college football fan who is just trying to get more information about how is every team going to look like that'll be playing against your team. This is a great pickup. So, if you can find it, definitely a good pickup. So, if we're looking at Utah, I will say they may be a little underrated considering that they do have a lot of guys coming back. I mean, for instance, they got Cam Rising and Brant Keithy, who both are like in their 7th year of college football. Ridiculous to think about. But both of them are going to be key contributors. Money Parks, if you remember my broadcast of the Utah and Florida last year, or Utah and USC, he was, especially that Florida game, he was incredible. He is going to be an integral part of this team this season, I believe. And Dorian Singer is going to be really good. So this team, I believe, is going to be really good. Utah, 21, potentially a little bit low for them because at the end of the season, they may be Big 12 champions and in the college football playoff, which is really, I mean, I don't like the whole 12-team playoff idea, but at the same time, that is the beauty of it, is that Utah, all they got to do, they got to win their conference and they're in. That's just me being honest because they're not, I mean, they're going to be, I think, at the end of the day, they're a 10-win team, I think. So, Kansas State is at 22. Now, you did hear me mention when I was talking about the video game about Will Howard. Yes, he transferred out of Kansas State. He's now at Ohio State. So who is taking his job? Most likely it's the sophomore Avery Johnson. I believe, comment below, but I believe he got some time last year playing. So he was a decent quarterback. I think that, of course, he hasn't had a lot of playing time. So I want to see him get some more, get some more playing under his belt. Other than that, I think he's going to be a decent quarterback. But I do think they've got a great run game with DJ Giddens being their lead back, that's going to be huge this season. I mean, because with a young quarterback who's learning the system, I think it's huge to have a good running back to go with it. And Chris Kleiman has done a good job since he got the job 6 years ago with Kansas State. He's done a great job of supplying a quarterback with a great run game. So that's something to keep in mind if you're a Kansas State fan. And then we're going to move on to the ACC. We're going to find Miami of Florida. Now, Mario Cristobal, third year with the Hurricanes. Of course, as you know, he played his college ball at Miami as an offensive tackle. I will say this. Cristobal has got himself an interesting team. Now, quarterback, they got the transfer from Washington State, Cam Ward, which is he's a great quarterback. He's done a great job. Of course, he's definitely going to be a big key point to this team. Another guy, Xavier Restrepo, is their senior wide receiver. He's going to be big because I think a guy like Cam Ward, who's going to be good at throwing the football, having a great receiver is huge. So Miami is really, I think, a dark horse team that could potentially win the ACC this season. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at with Miami of Florida. Also, keep in mind Anders Borregales. He's a great kicker. So keep that in mind as well. So they've got a lot of talent, and I believe that these last couple of years, I think honestly, Cristobal's finally got a team that will play decently this season. And I think that they actually will have a good chance of doing some good things within the ACC. And then moving back to the Big 12 real quick with the Arizona Wildcats. Now, throwing them in at 24, I think, is the biggest wild card of a team. Now, you did see in my top 40 players, I had their quarterback, Noah Fifita. He's a sophomore, and he's got a lot of talent. And so he's going to be big to helping Brent Brennan get his tenure at Arizona going in the right direction. Also, keep in mind that Brent Brennan, his only head coaching experience was at San Jose State of the Mountain West. So coming to the Big 12 is a huge change. But Arizona, I think, has got a lot of upside here. Also, keep in mind, Tetaroa McMillan, the receiver, he is going to be big for this Arizona team. He's the go-to guy for Noah Fifita, if we're all being honest. So, going to be big to see how this Arizona team does this season. I think a lot of people are interested to see how they do. And then we finish off the top 25 with the Louisville Cardinals. And I'm looking for them real quick just to get you some information about them. Keep in mind that this Louisville team, that was only year one for Jeff Brom. So year two could be really good. Now they got the Texas Tech transfer Tyler Shuck is going to be their quarterback this season. This is a great pickup, especially if you watch him at Oregon. I think he was a pretty good quarterback in my opinion. So, of course, this season he's got Colin Lacey as one of his receivers, Chris Bell. He's got Ja'Cory Brooks, who is from Alabama. So this team, I think, could really do some damage in the ACC. And, you know, it's year two of Jeff Brom. They look pretty promising, folks. So that is my top 25 for the upcoming season, folks. That's a lot of good stuff. So now, here's your opportunity. We are near the end of the show. So if you have any questions, real quickly, put that into the chat because we are nearing the end of the show tonight. And of course, planning on getting something out to you this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be really fun getting some content out this weekend. As far as details for that, I can't really speak to the details yet, but we will, of course, be trying to get something out to y'all this weekend. So, of course, like I said, if you have any comments, please leave it down in the chat right now because this is your opportunity for me to answer it. So, of course, I'll wait a few more minutes. So, Chris Naylor says Miami ACC champs. So, are you saying that with a question mark, or that would just be my question to you? Is do you think they'll win the ACC? That's my question. And then, who will be the most overhyped team this year, like Colorado last season? That's a good question. That one I'm think. I'll be honest. I think I gotta look at this, but I think Michigan's like in the top 5. They're potentially, I think, a team that could be overhyped just because with all that they lost, I think some people don't realize that they did lose a bunch. There's people still think they're going to be real high. I just don't believe that. So that's why. And then Chris Naylor says Ole Miss is overhyped. I don't know. And then he also says Texas is overhyped. And that one definitely I think is wrong. And here's the reason. Because Texas returns a great quarterback in Quinn Ewers, which I think is the key to that offense. So I don't have any problems with them right now. Plus, Isaiah Bond transferred from Alabama. I think Isaiah Bond is going to play really good for that Texas offense. So I think Texas is fine, folks. They'll be in the playoff. And then who is the best defensive team in the SEC? First and foremost, Georgia is probably like the main team that comes to mind when you think of the best defense in the SEC, even though they're probably not as good as what they have been in the past few years. As far as defensively, I still think it's Kirby Smart. So that's just my opinion. And then who will be the next Nick Saban? Okay, first of all, I don't think there's going to be another Nick Saban per se. I think there's going to be a bunch of coaches that coached under him that will combine to win as many championships as he did. For instance, Kirby Smart's already got 2 under his belt. Sark is going to get one at Texas, I think. He's going to get one at some point. And then, you got to look. Kiffin's been building Ole Miss for a little bit. I think Kiffin will eventually, I don't know if it's with Ole Miss or if he gets another job somewhere else, if he potentially gets that chance to get a couple championships or maybe just one. So, there's 3 guys right there I think have the best chance to get close, but not too close to Nick Saban. There's just a part of me that thinks there's no way anybody's going to replicate what Saban has done at Alabama. There's just no way to replicate that. And then Colton Naylor says, will Ole Miss be good, though? I think they will. And then Chris Naylor says Cooper is a Texas homer. No, I'm just being honest. I think Texas is going to be a really good team again this year, even though they're coming to the SEC. And here's the thing. I still think they've got a lot of talent on that team, and I think it's going to be one of those things. Because, okay, go back and look at when Nebraska moved to the Big Ten. They still had that one season where they were pretty good. But then after that, they fell off because then the recruiting level is much different between Big 12 and Big 10. So I will say this. I think that it's going to be a whole lot harder going into the SEC to recruit. But that's another conversation for another day. And then how good will Washington be? This is going to be a rough season for them because I'm sorry, that national championship you had this past year, you're not going to see either one of them get close for quite a while because they're going to have to rebuild. So, folks, I'm going to end it there tonight. It was, of course, a really fun show to do tonight. And, of course, like I said, we'll be back this weekend with some more content. So, with that, thank y'all for watching. We'll see you again later. Good night, everybody.